In last lecture, we discussed three streaming technologies. One is UDP-based streaming. Then we had HTTP streaming, and third one was DAS streaming, dynamic adaptive streaming over HTTP. We also looked at the limitations of UDP, that firewall becomes an issue. UDP has no control over congestion or flow control for the receiver to keep dumping data. And we also need a separate media server to handle user interactions and so on and so forth. Then we move to HTTP, which is like a simple file get. HTTP handles it is forwarding positions by making use of byte range header, but because it's a single file stream, it ends up wasting a lot of bandwidth. And all users get the same video, not different video. And that is where we went to DAS, which overcomes the limitations of HTTP. And that way we said that each video is stored in small chunks, and you can look at the bandwidth and download. So those who are interested, I would probably say implement a DAS server, look at it, download it, and see can you split video and see the working of the video, because then we really understand how the DAS works. In either case, we need to have a server, whether RTP server or HTTP server, that has to serve the video file. So where do the video content get served from? And that is the topic we'll discuss today, which is content delivery networks. That is, which are the networks that deliver the content. Primary requirement for any company, let's say Amazon Prime, Netflix, who are delivering multimedia content, that they should be able to provide a continuous play out. That means when users start watching a movie or conference or whatever, there should be a no break. Users see it continuously without any freezing or waiting or something of that kind. Second requirement that this video company needs to meet is high interactivity. Interactivity meaning that users should be able to, let's say, pause the video, move forward, move backward, fast forward, and even other kind of interactions. And while user does these interactions, we should not waste network bandwidth, neither we should waste server resources. And we are seeing that in HTTP, when user does a fast forward or user does a pause, we downloaded all the data which is not being played, and that becomes wastage of network bandwidth as well as net wastage of server compute power, and at pause, server even gets blocked. So without having those shortcomings, we still like to provide continuous play out to the user without having extra wasting or overcoming the limitations which HTTP provides. So how does a video company, or let's say Netflix or Amazon Prime would do it? One choice is it can have a large data center or maybe super performing multiple scaling or cluster of server one place, stores all the video on the server or servers, and whenever user makes a request, it serves that video from this mega superpower cluster or the computer, whatever you like to call it. Now, does that really work? So look at the approaches which are being done. Now, with video recording, almost every user today does video recording. Each one of us can record a video, upload on YouTube, other places, send on WhatsApp and share. So one is how do you share the videos and how does the user choose from millions of videos? And if you are watching a movie, same movie could be watched by large number of users, and how does the content video company deliver these contents to the user? So we'll look at two options. First option, you said, it can have a large data center or super mega server which can store all the videos, and all the videos are served from there. This large mega center could become a single point of failure. Anyone like to explain what single point of failure means? When we're saying a single point of failure, what does single point of failure mean? Susan?
Sir, if like it is a big network and one the main server fails, then the whole network will fail if it stops responding or stops
No,
working.
because one server fails does not mean network fails. But single point of failure means all the resources are being served from the single place, and single place fails, then entire service stops. Your concept is right, but the way you explained was not so right.
Oh,
Other
okay.
is this single server, would it cause congestion in some links? Or let me put it differently. Assuming all the engineering college of Bangalore are put in one place, that all the engineering college, maybe a large campus, whatever place you decide, so all the colleges would be within the same geographical area. Let's say maybe the palace ground somewhere, the whole palace ground says all the colleges would be here. So would that cause congestion on the road?
Yes, sir. Because
Because
there will be one route to the same college for all colleges.
only one road to all the colleges. So in the morning, evening, you have 100,000 students coming in, they're going to be complete traffic jam. Same way, if you have a single data center, it has one or two links, and since all the millions of users are served from that single link, it certainly becomes a point of network congestion. And secondly, the government would say, look, you are taking too many people, you pay more taxes. Now the network is provided by the ISP, whereas media content is by media company. So this video company has to pay high cost to the ISP which is providing the link. Other part is, let's say we put all the colleges in palace grounds. Is it convenient to everybody? Because some people who live near palace ground may be fine, but people who live far away, it will become very inconvenient. They may take a lot of time. So same way, if it's a single central mega server, let's say server is running in US, so the people in different parts of the world, they may have to use a much longer path link. And because of that, even one link becomes weaker, one link has a lower bandwidth, throughput of the entire path becomes down because of one particular link. And more the number of link, more is the chances that one or the other link would give bad performance and user would suffer and user would not get the right bandwidth and right experience. And let's say same video being watched by multiple people, then for each of the user, you will be sending same video again and again over the same link. It's something like, remember, we looked at broadcasting, we're sending a unique multiple packet to his destinations, we're choking the link. So that basically means this option of using a single large mega server or mega data center where everything works is certainly not scalable. It can work for few small clients, but cannot work for large number of users, it certainly can't scale up. So if we don't have a mega server, that means we need to put in distributed manner, because then we can scale up any way we want. And that is what is called option 2, where you distribute the servers geographically across many regions. And these servers, which are distributed across many regions of the world, are basically called the CDN servers, or the network of all these servers is what is called content delivery network. Because these servers, they're only delivering content. As a user, you don't go directly to them, get a content. As a user, I would still go to Amazon Prime, or I'll still go to Netflix, say I want to watch a movie XYZ. But even though I'm going to main place, my movie would come from a nearest server, and hence the name is Content Delivery Network, because they are not a normal web server, they're not a normal service provider, they only provide you content delivery, nothing else. Their expertise is how efficiently, how fast they can provide content to you without any delay, to make sure that user gets a continuous play out with minimum delay. And that is the job of CDN. So job of a CDN provider is that it has to manage a number of servers in multiple geographical locations. Now each of the locations would store videos, images, audio, document, whatever. So these CDN servers normally store the multimedia content. They normally don't keep your main website, main web page. They only keep the site content information, something of that kind. So you can look at from that perspective. Now, once a user makes a request, you send the user to the nearest location. They get the service from there rather than coming same place. So even though you go to Netflix, say I want to watch a movie X, the actual movie would be served from a location which is in a position to best service. Netflix may be serving this movie from, let's say, hundreds of locations in the world, but they need to determine for a user which is the best for it, and then try to serve from that location rather than from main. Because main, if you do that, you are back to central mega server, which is not going to work. So the overall, or the ultimate video company of that can be happy only if he gets good quality video with no freezing, continuous smooth, with interactivity, and as long as that happens, user would remain happy. So what kind of CDNs could be made? CDNs can be categorized into maybe two categories. One is called private CDN, other is called third-party CDN. Private CDN means that the video content company is providing the video service or multimedia service, they have their own CDN network. That means this CDN network is designed and implemented to provide delivery on only for a given multimedia company, not in general. Whereas third-party CDN provider is a general purpose CDN provider, and that means this CDN provider can serve many multimedia network companies. So if a third-party provider, it can serve Netflix users, it can serve Amazon Prime users, it can serve Vimeo users, but with a private network, it can serve only users of that particular company who has set up that private network. Can you think of any company which has its own network of content delivery which does not do third-party service? And you use it almost everyday basis.
Sorry, YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, which is
YouTube.
Google. So Google has its own servers, almost that in the point of presence of each ISP. So if your ISP is Airtel or Voda or let's say BSNL or Hathway or whatever, so whosoever ISP gives you internet connectivity in their main central place where they start, Google would deploy their CDN server and your content would be coming from that server. So if I'm on Airtel network, even though watching the YouTube video, my video would come from Google server sitting in the Airtel network, and somebody is accessing internet from home using, let's say, the BSNL broadband. It may be getting content from the Google server in BSNL network. And but that those servers by Google serve only YouTube traffic or Google Meet traffic, but not for anything else. And that is where it is called private. Other is third party, it is like a cloud. Let's say AWS cloud. Anyone can go and hire a computer, pay the required money and use it. AWS never says, no, no, I will not give service to students. I will give service to only engineers and not to common man. They don't distinguish. As long as you have a credit card, you are willing to pay money, whatever rate, they provide you service. Their job is to provide compute and infrastructure resources. What you do is your job. Same way, these third-party CDN providers basically deploy their servers, and depending on which is the media internet company, they would serve content for those. So one of the well-known third-party providers is called Akamai. How many of you heard about Akamai? Looks like no one.
No, sir.
This is a tier one company, and people like you like to get a job in Cisco or Juniper or Google or Microsoft. People also aspire to get a job in Akamai. It pays very well. It's an internet company, and Akamai has a presence in more than 130 countries, and maybe 2,000 locations. They have their own server. So it serves content for Netflix, it serves content for other users. Even if you look at the Paytm, contents come from Akamai and other places. So different people it serves. So what they do is basically in the main page when you access a video, you'll somehow be directed to the Akamai server and access it. They make sure that content is secure, that you don't store a URL. So they give you customized URL so that the URL is valid only for next half an hour, 1 hour, and after that you can't use the URL again. Otherwise, you can note down the URL. Let's say you want to watch a movie, you can note down the URL, and after playing the movie to Netflix, you can take the same URL and go to other places. That will not work because that URL is created temporarily only for 3-4 hours. So all kind of securities, hacking shouldn't happen, performance, they measure. That's one of the very leading players. So it could be, if those who want to work in the networking field, Akamai is one of the sought after company where people would like to join, other than the Cisco's and those kind of companies. So the way the CDN can be deployed, one is the two categories. One is how CDN could work. One choice is what is called enter deep. Enter deep meaning the servers would be placed closest to the user. Wherever user is, placed closest to the user, meaning if server could be placed in each ISP location, because as a user, you are directly served by ISP on a single hop link, and you have a highest bandwidth with no delay. And our key requirement of multimedia delivery is very limited delay and high bandwidth so that you can watch flawlessly your video. So enter deep meaning the servers would be placed closest to the user or what is called access networks. And basically what is called at the edge. Now since there could be a number of ISPs, 1,000 plus ISPs, so this company has to place these servers in each of the ISP locations or access networks. That means a number of locations where the server are placed is going to be much more larger. Imagine if the number of servers are placed in, let's say, 2000 locations, the management and monitoring of these servers is a challenge. It becomes too complex. And managing multiple servers is a lot more challenge. Small servers is a lot more easier. Same way, if I'm running a class, let's say, or something, of 1000 colleges, managing would be a lot more tougher than having a one college or two colleges for a university perspective. That's why once number of colleges increase beyond a point, university breaks up and distributes the server. So this approach of going closer to the user, being at the edge, that means user get a very high bandwidth, very low delay, is used by Akamai. And in fact, Akamai is the leader in CDN network delivery. There are other service providers as well. There are other content providers. You look at level 3 communications, Limelight communications, so on and so forth. But Akamai is very well known, the leaders, and they use this enter deep model. The second approach is what is called bring home. That basically means pick a location which is closer to the tier 1 ISP. So you know that Bangalore is hub of all the IT companies, so all the ISPs offices in Bangalore, so probably keep one server which will connect to all the ISPs. So rather than entering each ISP location, you find a location which is close to all the ISPs and put it, and identify few such locations. So rather than having 2000 locations, you might place large servers in maybe 10, 20 locations, but is serving only tier 1. The benefit you get is your management overhead become much less because you're managing less number of locations, and so management will deliver service. And this kind of the approach is used by what is called Limelight network. But in any case, the content is served from a server which is different from the main website, which we try to use to get your content. So how does a CDN would typically operate? Now, the way CDN would work, let's say we are trying to watch movies, let's say Netflix. Now, it would have all its movies stored in whatever central repository, and it replicates all the content to these different servers or cluster of servers across. Now, it does not, Netflix may have probably thousands of movies or hundred thousands of movies. It doesn't have to keep all the hundred thousands movie in each of the locations where CDN is. For example, if you are in Bangalore, chances are that you're watching a movie, most likely you may be watching a movie, Hindi movies, English movies, maybe Kannada and Tamil movies, but very unlikely somebody would be watching a movie in Haryanavi or Dogri or Punjabi. Few users, yes, but large number of users, or there's no point keeping movie, Russian language movie or French movie or German movie in Bangalore because number of users watching such movie very low. So not copy of each video is stored in each cluster. Because if you have to copy and each, you require a huge storage, huge center. And reason is because those movies or those content would be watched rarely. But they have to have a provision that once such a request comes, let's say in the CDN servers in Bangalore, they do not keep by default German movies. But a German visitor comes, it comes to our college or takes your home, and I try to watch German movie, it will go to the nearest CDN, there's no German movie, but it still has to be served. So typically what they do is, they use what is called a pull strategy to pull the movie. If you recollect, when we started our module 1 with application protocol, we studied the protocols HTTP, FTP, DNS, SMTP, and POP3. I'm repeating HTTP, DNS, FTP, SMTP, and POP3. Which one of these are pull? Which one of these are push? Which protocols use push mechanism? Which protocol uses pull mechanism? Amravati. Ashwini J.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what is pull and push mechanism when you talk about the protocols?
Mm,
Let's look at HTTP as a protocol. Is HTTP a pull protocol or a push protocol?
I don't know, sir.
Don't know. Okay. Avinash. Avinash is not there. Deva Dikshit.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Avinash. Is HTTP a pull protocol or a push protocol?
Sir, can you repeat, sir? It is not clear.
HTTP, you know what HTTP protocol?
Yes, sir.
Is it a pull protocol or a push protocol? Does it use a pull mechanism or does it use a push mechanism?
So I think, sir, push, sir.
How? Can you explain me why it is push? Give a reason. Guesswork is not good enough.
Sir,
Bhuvna,
don't know, sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, HTTP, is it a HTTP protocol, does it use a pull mechanism or push mechanism?
Sir, I think push.
How? Can you explain me why? What is push and what is pull?
Sir, I don't know properly.
What is the English meaning means? Pull means you're trying to get something.
Yes, sir.
Push means you're trying to give something. Correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Now, when you access a web page, are we pushing the content to the web server or are we getting content from the web server?
We are getting the content, sir.
Then should it be pull or a push?
Pull, sir.
It should be pull. So
Pull, yes.
HTTP is a pull protocol. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now let us look SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Is it a pull or a push?
Push.
Why?
So we can't pull the email, so we can send the mails,
Yes,
but we can't get it.
SMTP is only to deliver mail. So we connect
Yes, sir.
and we send the mail to the mail server. So perfectly right. SMTP is a uses push mechanism. What about POP3? Is it a push or a pull? Gautam? Using POP3, what do? Do you fetch content or do you push content?
Sir, I think it's push.
POP3, are you pushing email or are you retrieving email using POP?
It's a retrieve.
You are retrieving.
Retrieve, sir.
So POP3
It's
is a
pull,
pull,
sir.
yeah, not push. Okay. So same way, when you look at our CDN, so let's say my CDN server, some user requests a German movie, and it does not have a German movie in its local storage. It will contact the main server, get the movie, and then sell to the user. So from CDN perspective, when it's fetching content from the main, it is pull mechanism to keep it as well update, and then it serves the user. Push meaning the main server would push this content to everywhere, to all the CDN servers, that will push mechanism. So for less number of servers, they might go to push, then up to date. The benefit if you are using a push mechanism, then you will be keeping all the content everywhere, so user would not even see an initial delay. But you'll be wasting a lot of storage because not every content is watched by every user. So in general, we expect that rare movies, user may expect a few second delay, which is fine, and that should work fine. So when a cluster does not have a requested video, it fetches from central repository and then serves the user, and at the same time, it serves to the client. So client needs to retrieve at the rate of play rate what time video is recorded. But since the whole content, it can retrieve from the main server at a much higher rate. So user will not even notice that there is a delay because it's trying to fetch the whole movie. It can, while keep fetching, it can play simultaneously and user will get a good experience. And this way, it will keep only those movies which are required. So you can say they work something like a high-level cache or delivery. So let us look at the typical operation, what happens, how this CDN delivers. So consider a user, which is a Bob, which is given in the picture. The diagram is taken from the book. Let's say the Bob visits a website called netcinema.com. It clicks on netcinema.com, look at different movies, chooses one video and clicks on the video link. And that means it is requesting a movie which is given by netcinema.com/6y7b, some video URL link. Now this video, this netcinema.com is the main website, and as we said, the multimedia contents are stored in CDN and not on the main website. So it could be third party like Akamai, it could be private, but separate CDN server. So what really happens is the following. When Bob clicks, he gets the link of video.netcinema.com. He visited netcinema.com and clicked. The browser gets the link of video.netcinema.com which a user needs to fetch. Now, because you got the link, you need to fetch, so you make a DNS query. So you will approach your local DNS server, ask a local DNS server to get the IP address of video.netcinema.com, whatever that is. Now, the way local DNS server works, it could be either iterative or recursive. Because it doesn't have the information, it contacts authoritative name server for NetCinema and asks, give me the IP address for video.netcinema.com. NetCinema knows that I don't have a video. In the DNS text fields, it provides that such videos are basic, or the host which are looking at video.netcinema.com, such content are served from another host called kingcdn.com. So get a request that access kingcdn.com, then this DNS server contacts the authoritative name server for kingcdn.com. And this is what we call as iterative approach. Now, DNS server kingcdn.com says, okay, the movie happens to be in a particular place and returns the IP address of the server. So this is the DNS server kingcdn.com, and actual the CDN server is somewhere. So DNS would give you IP address of the CDN server. The local DNS server gives to the user, browser. Now browser makes a request to this actual CDN server, which is actually hosting a movie, and fetches the movie. And once it gets the movie, it starts playing. And that, in a nutshell, a very, very simplified concept of how a CDN really works. Even though concept looks good, but today's really what happens, when you get a URL, they always make sure that each URL is specific to each user. They put some kind of timestamp information so that when Gautam watches the movie, he will get a one URL. When Avinash watches the same movie, it will get a different URL with different links, so that you can't share the URL and the servers are configured. These are called security features. And these URLs would be valid only for few hours. After that may not be valid, so caching them is not going to work. And that's the way the basic CDN setup really works. Now the challenge really becomes, there are a number of such CDN servers. How to select a good CDN server so that user can get the best experience? First approach would be, we know where the client is coming from. A client is coming from Bangalore, so let's pick a server which is closer to Bangalore physically. Or if a client is coming from Delhi, and this you can identify using the client's IP address. Because when IP addresses are given, from geolocation tag, you can figure out this IP belongs to Karnataka, this IP belongs to Delhi, this IP belongs to Maharashtra, or this IP belongs to Russia, and so on and so forth. So having identified the usual location, you can pick a CDN which is close to that location. For example, if user is from Karnataka, they'll put a CDN location which is in Bangalore. If you're in Tamil Nadu, they'll choose a CDN location which is Chennai. It works well most of the cases, but some cases it has a problem. The reason could be, for example, today, a lot of us are working from home, or corporate users work from home, and the way the corporate users work, they set up a VPN tunnel to the corporate office. So let's say I'm working for Amazon, and then I set up a tunnel to Amazon. So our tunnel will be set up to everybody in India. They set up to tunnel to Amazon India, which will be in Bangalore. So even a person who's in Delhi is working from home, tunnel would be set up to Amazon office in Bangalore, which happens to be in World Trade Center. And now because of the VPN, your local DNS server, everything, because VPN is set up, you become part of your corporate network. In a corporate network, a local CDN server, so even though you are accessing this from Delhi, but your CDN server happens to be in Bangalore, not in Delhi. So when you want to watch a movie, they'll say, oh, this traffic is coming from Bangalore or Karnataka, so they'll pick a CDN server from Karnataka rather than picking from Delhi. That is become a VPN setup. Because of this reason, it may not be always appropriate to use a geographical location. Secondly, let's say even if it works, now because I'm accessing from, let's say, Karnataka, now whether I access the movie in daytime, nighttime, evening time, I will always get from Bangalore, and bandwidth consumption, network status could vary drastically in the evening versus morning. So if you look at geography, location, closeness, it is really remain oblivious to current network conditions because you get the same location. So this doesn't really serve very well. And that means you should actually look at which CDN server gives you minimum variation delay and high bandwidth. And since my multimedia data is very, very time sensitive, so I should always choose a server which gives me minimum delay and not high delay. And that means somehow one should measure what is my delay time is and what is the bandwidth, and based on that, you choose which CDN to be given. So how does that reflect? So you basically measure the salt delay. So when you set up a connectivity, you can ping different ISPs, you know the different ISP servers, like we have given a dash, we have different URLs, ping to each of the CDN servers and figure out which CDN server has the shortest ping response, and that means that would be closest. Or since you are doing HTTP setup, which runs on TCP, you can measure the round trip time of SYN and SYNACT, and that would give you the delay, and that could be fine. Or when you're doing a DNS query, From DNS query, DNS can figure out which are the CDN servers which are closest, because the DNS server, which is authoritative, is giving you the IP address of the right DNS. So it can keep monitoring which server are closest, and they try to give you respect to that. So they're the different measures they basically use. Other mechanisms could be used is what is called IP anycast. Does anyone recollect what IP anycast is? Chandan? Dhruv?
Yes, sir.
What is IP anycast?
I don't know, sir.
Faria? Faria never responds. Gagan Suri? Ganesh? We discuss IP anycast when we discuss IPv6. Karthik?
Sir,
What is IP anycast?
sir, IP
Anycast.
anycast, sir.
Yeah, we have addresses, like we have a unicast address, we have a broadcast address, we have a multicast address, and we have the anycast address. So what is IP anycast?
Sir, it is a networking technique that allows for multiple machines to share the same IP address.
Correct. Perfect. Now, how does IP anycasting would work in our CDN setup? Your answer is right. Can you think deep and tell how it will help our CDN servers?
Serial server, sir.
Yeah, when you're doing the CDN server, so I have a different CDN server in different locations, one in Chennai, one in Bangalore, one in Delhi, one in Calcutta, and I give the same IP address. So when a user comes, if user from, let's say, Punjab comes, he should be go to that server in Delhi, but a user from, let's say, Madurai comes, he should go to CDN server in Chennai. Everybody got same IP address. So how do they really go to the nearest CDN server? How does IP anycast work? Your definition is right. Look what happened in IP anycast. You basically need to choose closest path. Rebudget or
The collection of servers may share this same IP address,
yes.
then
But-
send
yeah.
the data from the source computer to the server that is topographically the closest.
Yeah, but how do you implement that? That is fine. How do you implement? Do you recollect BGP? You want to get to the protocol. Now, see this different, let's say server, I'm sitting in, let's say, I'm sitting
Start
in
with
Metro. And there is a server in Delhi, server in Bangalore, server in Chennai, server in Calcutta. Each of these servers, from network perspective, they'll be generating BGP advertisements. I think I can put in mute, maybe some background noise. Now, each of them would be sending BGP advertisement. And when I receive the BGP advertisement, I know that the same destination, I have multiple paths now. IP same, one AS uplink will be to Delhi, one AS uplink to Bangalore, one AS uplink to Chennai, to Calcutta, and all that. Now, if you recollect the BGP route selection strategy, we said the strategy is first we use the local preference to implement policies. Second is we look at length of the AS hop path. Third is we do hot potato routing. And fourth is BGP ID. So using BGP, we can determine which is the closest server to us. and using that, you go to that server. So using IP Anycast, this could be implemented and things work because of multiple advertisements. It makes use of AS path link, and with the shortest path link, it basically assigns that and user goes there. And that's how the CDN is selected. Other choices, rather than the CDN server deciding, can the client decide? If you are using, let's say, the dash file, dynamic adaptive streaming, a manifest file, for each chunk, we given a number, different encoding, and for each encoding, we can even have all the CDN entries there. So let's say my movie has 360 chunks, 1 hour movie, 10-second chunk, that means there will be 360 chunks. So each chunk will be different encoding, 1 Mbps, 2 Mbps, 4 Mbps, 10 Mbps. And for each of these, I have 10 servers. I'll be giving a server address. So probably for each chunk, there will be 40 URLs. I know the bandwidth, so I look at what are the different locations, and client can ping all the 10 servers and determine which is the closest. And for a given chunk, it picks the server which gives the best response. And that is what the Netflix does. Because network bandwidth could be varying. If you use the movie from the same location, user may get a bad experience. The claim to fame of Netflix is it tries to give best user experience live, and they do a lot of jugglery behind. You constantly keep monitoring which is the next CDN server, which can be the best chunk, what is the current bandwidth, and the chunks are stored typically 4-second size. So you watch one chunk of 4-second size, and during this time, it measures and monitors the next chunk and tries to get on right place. So intelligence lies with the client. Client decides which is the best server, using ping, using round trip time, and makes a decision. And that's the way this approach works. So this basically talks about CDN content delivery network. Your syllabus doesn't say anything about case studies. It only talks about CDN. So we'll just take common case study called YouTube. You can probably look at YouTube stats, which are all familiar with. It started in 2005, taken over by Google in 2006. You can look at the current stats from a website which is about data is 10 months old. I'm sure you can find other websites that gives you most concurrent data. The number of people watching YouTube is 1.3 billion. Number of video hours uploaded per minute, so on and so forth. Number of video watches per day, and so all kind of details, this information there. Now, what does YouTube does? Which technology it uses? It started with HTTP streaming. And what it does is, rather than having a single encoding type, it encodes a given video at 360 kbps or 450 kbps or whatever. And as a user, you can decide which encoding string you want to download. So for a desktop user who is on the line, it basically determines that. As far as CDN is concerned, it is a private CDN and puts its server in each of the ISP. Google is a big player, and every ISP wants to give best performance, so that they permit Google to place their servers to give the best service users there. And if the given chosen cluster doesn't have the required video, either it can fetch or we can use HTTP redirect. You know what HTTP redirect is? You'll give a location website, it gives you redirect to some other website. So depending on the connectivity bandwidth, it can either fetch and serve you, or say once in a while, it simply gives to the other server using HTTP redirect, and you get the access. So the desktop typically uses HTTP streaming, but the mobile app either move to the DAS, dynamic adaptive streaming, and to limit the bandwidth waste, because mobile users have a very, very dynamic bandwidth. Because of radio signal connectivity, bandwidth could vary. So basically use DAS, get small chunks, monitor the bandwidth, and make sure you don't waste the bandwidth, make optimal use of it. So typically mobile user make use of DAS, whereas the desktop users, mostly they still use HTTP. You can record and you can see probably This about 6 months ago, I tried to look at. So there are the different choices, 144 pixels, 240, and the different kind of bandwidth you can look at and then download, basically. That's all is about CDN. So we are done with content delivery network. The next few lectures will look at the peculiarity of communicating voice or voice over IP, what the challenges are, and what are the protocols. We basically look at how does it happen that it can handle the delay, it handles the jitter. We look at those aspects. So next 2-3 lectures, we'll basically look at voice over IP. Any questions, please feel free to ask. If no, you can probably drop out and go to your next class.